Good afternoon and welcome back to another edition of the Lynn Lowdown. I'm Dani Vittori, and today we have on the president of North Shore Community College, Mr. William Heineman. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Dani. It's great to be here.
Great. So I'll start off by asking, how long have you been the president there?
So just a little bit more than 18 months. I started in the summer of 2021.
So, like I said before, you're new-ish.
Newish is a good descriptor.
Knew it. And before we jump into the 5-year strategic plan, what do you do as the president? I mean, it sounds like just such a huge job.
It is a big job. Really, it's about setting the direction for the institution. Things like developing a strategic plan and then making sure we actually follow all the steps in the plan. So a lot of it is oversight. It's about hiring really good people that lead the institution, our academic people, our facilities people, our financial people. It's also about representing the college in the community, as we're doing here today, and with our state legislators and the mayor, and it's really being the college's leader and spokesperson.
Great. Well, I respect anyone who could do it, because that is not my forte at all.
Well, you never know, Dani.
You never know. So, I said, you mentioned you just released this very impressive 5-year strategic plan. So you have campuses in both Danvers and Lynn.
Yep.
So we're talking about here in Lynn. Do you want to start off by just saying a little bit about the 3 priorities that you sort of listed out in it?
Sure. So I think the first thing I'd point out is that the plan is all about the results that students get as a result of their education at North Shore. So if they came looking for a certificate or a degree that would lead to a job, what matters to us is, did they go get that job? And is that job something that is going to contribute to the community? If they came to North Shore because it's the first step toward a higher degree, a bachelor's degree, for instance, then the thing that's important to us is, do they eventually get that degree? And so the plan is really focused on, what does the student get out of their education? And then how does that contribute to the community? So there's sort of 3 priorities in the plan. The first one is to really focus on the student experience at the college. And so we want to be innovative academically. We know the world's changing around us. We know today's students aren't like I was when I was in college. And so we want to be innovative. We also recognize that students need support. Sometimes students struggle academically, but we have a lot of students who are doing fine academically, but there's other things going on in their lives that they need support with. Maybe it's childcare. Maybe it's transportation, getting to and from school. So the plan focuses a lot on, how do we help sort of the whole student succeed? So that's number 1. Number 2 is really about social justice. It's really about making sure that the good outcomes that can result from going to college are spread evenly across our student body. Like a lot of colleges in the country, that doesn't always happen at North Shore. Sometimes people of higher incomes are more likely to succeed. Sometimes white students are more likely to succeed than others, or females more likely than males. So the plan focuses on, how do we make sure everybody gets those good results that they came for. The third thing is about, what does it really mean to be a successful college as an institution in the 2020s? And colleges have a reputation sometimes for being stuck in the past, very traditional. Community colleges usually aren't so bad that way, but we want to make sure we're doing business in a way that makes sense in the world we're in now, with social media and so much remote work going on in the world. It's a different world, and we want to make sure we're doing that work well.
Yeah, that all makes total sense to me. I mean, I never even imagined being able to do college virtually, and yet that's what I did. When I was a junior in college, everything just went remote, which was a huge shift from before, where it was like everything's in person.
And one of the interesting things that came out of that, and I don't think anybody would say COVID was a good thing, but we learned things as a result of that shift, and we found out, for some students, the remote learning is really a good option, especially if, for instance, they have some of those transportation challenges. Then they're able to not worry about the transportation and go to school from home. And you know, that third priority where we talked about transforming the way we do business, I'm sure like your school, we moved all of the student services online. So if you needed an advisor, if you needed to talk to your financial aid counselor, it's all online. Now we're back again. We have lots of students on campus, but most students have not gone back to those offices for the in-person services. Most students are using the online services still. And so that may become sort of a permanent shift for us. So it's paying attention to what the students actually need and delivering it for them.
Focusing on what they need, the shifting culture. I know there's a joke with my generation that we have no attention span.
Well, it's a quick one, so we got to move with your span.
Like a 10-second one, that's it. That's all you get. And so when you were looking at, 5 years, it is a decent amount of time. How did you start developing that? Like, how do you go about developing that plan?
Well, we try to look out ahead and understand what the world might look like 5 years from now. We look at how the trends around us are changing, how jobs are changing, how people are living their lives, how that's changing. And then we say, what's the academic programs that our students now and 5 years from now will need? Sometimes it takes a while to develop a new program, so we need to be thinking 3 or 4 years beforehand and get started with that process. We've got some new programs we're going to be offering here on our Lynn campus in the next year or two. We started working on them several years ago, actually, and that's in the plan, offering more of our programs on the Lynn campus.
Okay, 'cause I was going to ask, when you're planning, you said you're in two different communities that they're different. Like Danvers and Lynn are very different. So how do you balance that? Yeah,
that's a great question because, of course, that's where the two campuses are, but there's actually more than 20 cities and towns that North Shore serves. So there's Salem and Gloucester, and you're right, none of those municipalities are exactly alike. And so we try to look at the whole big picture because the North Shore has specific employers and specific needs, and it doesn't matter which town you're in. We all need people that work in the hospital. We need firefighters and first responders and teachers. But then there's specific needs that really matter to individual towns. So part of that is, where do we locate our academic programs? Do we have them on both campuses? Do we have them on just one? And so that's part of it, but part of it is just always being flexible, always looking for ways. If a decision got made 10 years ago to put a program in one place, can we revisit it? Can we reconsider based on what's happening? And
for those who want to, I know it's very long. You said it's like 200 pages?
Yeah, it's pretty long.
So that's long. But if anyone wanted to see the plan, like was curious to read some of it, how would they go about finding it?
So it is on our website. You can actually go read the whole thing. It is really long. The first part of it is the key part of it. It's 30 or 40 pages. And there's a lot of good sort of bolding in the plan, so you can pick out the really important stuff, like those 3 priorities I mentioned.
Yes. So I was going to ask what you meant by the whole student, but that makes sense, not just focusing on academic, but on their whole lives.
And that just comes from years and years of experience. When I started as a faculty member back in the 1990s, when a student was struggling, the assumption was there's some academic issue here, right? Maybe there's a communication skill issue we need to help this student with, and sometimes that's true. But what we started to figure out was, okay, we'll provide services to help with that. We'll provide tutoring, we'll provide advising. And it helped some students, but there was an awful lot of students who it didn't seem to make a difference for. And so we started to ask ourselves the question, is there something else going on here? Are there distractions in the student's life? And then how can we help? Because our mission is education. That's what we're funded to do. So we're not a healthcare organization. We're not a child care organization. We're not a bus, a bus company. So it's impossible for us to do all those things for students. So how we try to serve the student holistically is by partnering with organizations in the community that do that work. So we have lots of conversations with childcare providers, for instance. How do we make this easy for our students so they can get what they need in terms of feeling good about where their kids are and they can concentrate on their studies? Or if it's food insecurity, if our students are hungry, partnering with the really great community-based organizations that do that work every day and figuring out, again, how do we make this easy for our students so they can concentrate on their schoolwork?
That makes total sense to me, and it seems like a great way to do that, partnering with so many other amazing organizations all around Lynn.
They've got the expertise, they know what they're doing, and boy, they're creative. They've got great ideas about how to address some of these things.
No, they really do. And before I wrap up, I tried to hit all the main points of the plan. Was there anything else that you wanted to say or mention about it?
Sure. I mean, one of our big focuses in Lynn is post-secondary attainment. Now, that's a real fancy word. All it means is training or education after high school. Okay. In a lot of people's heads, that means a college degree. But more and more, there's shorter training or educational opportunities, maybe just a month long, maybe 6 weeks long, that might get you an industry certification. Those right now can be almost as valuable as some of the degrees that take longer and cost more to get. So we're focusing a lot on those shorter term educational opportunities. And we're also working to offer more programs here in Lynn. So we actually have a new cannabis certificate that we're going to be offering in the fall. That just recognizes that that's one of the changes in the world, right? Legalization of marijuana. And so there's a big industry there. That industry needs workers. North Shore is one of the only colleges in New England, not just community colleges, but colleges at all that have a horticulture program. Turns out growing marijuana is fairly complicated, especially if you're doing it at a big scale for business. And so we already have a lot of the expertise that's necessary. Mm-hmm. And we said this is a need in our local community. The businesses are looking for people who know what they're doing when it comes to working with that product. Mm-hmm. So that's a new program we'll be offering this fall. Another one we're hoping to offer, I can't guarantee it, but we're working hard on it, is medical assisting. So that's a healthcare program, and it's sort of a first stepping stone toward more complex types of healthcare jobs. And it's really the first healthcare program we will have been able to offer on our Lynn campus, so we're really excited about that.
Oh, yeah, there's so many things to be excited about going into the future, and how many things you currently offer and are going to be offering.
Yeah, and the last thing I'd point out is the new high school that we opened in collaboration with Lynn Public Schools back in September. It's the Frederick Douglass Collegiate Academy. I was talking about that low attainment rate. We want more people in Lynn to take that next step beyond high school. Early college is a proven strategy from around the country that gets more people that wouldn't normally go to college to consider it, to actually attend, and it makes it far more likely that they'll complete some sort of credential. And it helps to erase some of those gaps I was talking about before between, for instance, Hispanic students and other students. So it's something we're really excited about. We have 75 freshmen, I think, on campus right now. And next year we'll have sophomores and freshmen, and we'll build eventually to have all 4 grades.
It is. That's incredible that you were able to. Congratulations on that.
Yeah, it's really exciting, and it's a great partnership. Lynn Public Schools has been great to work with.
Definitely. And I want to thank you again for just coming on and talk about it and share all this amazing news from the college.
Absolutely. I really appreciate the opportunity, Dani. Happy to chat anytime.
Great. Thank you. And thank you for watching. This has been the Lynn Lowdown, and we will see you next week with more guests.